Give you the airtime, as it were.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, welcome. I'm Bronis de Supinski, and it's a pleasure to be coming to you live from the exhibit floor here in St. Louis in the Americas Center. I hope you had an opportunity to see the keynote talk this morning with Vince Cerf. I don't know, I thought it was an amazing talk. I hope you did too. If it's not already there on demand, it will be soon. Tomorrow morning we start off with talks by our major award winners, David Bader and David Abramson, and I hope you get a chance to catch those live as well. But with me today is Justin Hotard. He's the Senior Vice President and General Manager for HPC and AI at Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. Thanks for joining us today, Justin.
Bronis, I just want to say thank you. It's great to be here, and I'm so appreciative of your leadership in getting us together in person after a couple of years. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you. You know, and I wanted to let our audience know that I actually know Justin, but this is so I've met him, but only over WebEx sessions up till now. This is the first time that I've actually gotten to meet Justin in person. So those of you who don't know, Justin's current position is the one that Pete Ungaro had after the merger between HPE and Cray. So Pete is, he seems to know everybody in the HPC community, and so I want to have you provide some idea of what your background is and how you came to have such that communicates to people how prominent your position really is in our community now. And so I wanted to give you the opportunity to chat about that.
Oh, thanks, Bronis. And let me say first, I want to recognize and thank Pete. I mean, Pete was a luminary in this industry. He led, Cray drove innovation into this industry, into our community. Beyond that, he shepherded Cray into the merger with HPE, which I think we're all seeing the benefits of now. And then even in the transition, I mean, when Pete shared with me his decision to retire, we discussed my succeeding him. He's been a phenomenal advisor and friend throughout that time. So I first I want to just say a personal thanks to Pete for all that he's done. And maybe I'll give you a little bit about me. I've been with HPE for 6 years. The beginning of that, actually, one of the first things I did when I joined the company was worked on the SGI acquisition. So I got to know a little bit about the community and the business then. I then spent about 2.5 years running our ProLiant business before timing a move to Japan perfectly right at the front of the pandemic. So I went over for a 1-year assignment. It was remote for 6 months of that, and then came back and effectively started the discussions with Pete on the transition. So I know the general industry really well. Obviously, very new to HPC, but I've just been overwhelmed by the support and the engagement, particularly during a pandemic, right, which makes it so challenging sometimes to meet and get to know members of our community.
So I was supposed to be in Japan for the eScience conference in September of 2020. I was telling somebody earlier today about that, from who's here from Japan, and that was the first time my wife was going to go with me to Japan. I've been there several times, and I know what you mean about it's been so hard with the international travel. That's one thing that's truly great. That we're actually having people from international attendees here, and I'm really happy with that. Could you tell us a little bit more about having taken on the position in the middle of a pandemic, how that's impacted your being able to get up, get to know everybody you needed to know, and how that maybe what you've learned just from that and in general coming into this industry.
Yeah, I would say my first observation, or biggest observation since coming in, is really that the community in the industry and how collaborative everybody is. And even though there's competition, there's a shared purpose of advancing science. And for a company like HPE, I mean, our purpose is to advance the way people live and work, and that really fits so nicely with this industry. And at the same time, if I look at a lot of our innovation in the space, I mean, we've been, had a long time presence in the general IT industry, but a lot of our innovation is actually in this business unit. I mean, it's true in software, it's true in silicon. We just rebranded the business unit HPC and AI because we're investing heavily in training at scale and inference at scale. And what's so impressive when I get to meet people in the community, even remotely, is there's just this desire to help solve problems. It's such a collaborative, constructive mindset. And I think it's because everybody sees the greater good, the benefit that we deliver to the world. And to your point, it has been a challenge. I mean, I've met some of my own team members here for the first time, which is a little bizarre.
For example, who have you met for the first time?
So I met Sharda Krishna, who's a member of our team doing the Internet of Workflows, as an example. Now, I've talked to her on the phone a few times, but I hadn't met her in person. I met Larry Kaplan, one of our senior technical leaders on the software side.
I know Larry very well, and I think he's really familiar to people around the SC in general. So yeah, that's amusing. That I imagine. Well, I know because I've been on calls with you and that Larry was on. That you've met him before. It's just like we met.
Yep.
But yeah, it's just not the same until you get to be in person with people, and so.
Yeah, no, and it's been, we were talking about the show, and I've been out really since late June, starting to see customers. Once I was vaccinated, once the protocols were allowing limited in-person meetings, and one trip overseas. So what's also been great is everybody's been really flexible and adaptable to accommodate those. You mentioned we haven't met, but I was able to go to Livermore.
I was going to say that. Amusingly, Justin came and visited Livermore, but I was here in St. Louis helping getting SciNet ready. So we didn't meet then, but here we are now. So very good.
Great.
So enough of the small talk. I'm sure everybody's interested in hearing about Frontier. What can you tell us about the system and its architecture?
Yeah, Frontier is going to be a phenomenal system, and we talk a lot about exascale as this destination, but I think it's actually the beginning of the journey for us, and Frontier really being at the front end of that. I mean, over 9,000 nodes, 4 GPUs per node. AMD MI250s, 1 EPYC processor per node. Obviously, we anticipate well in excess of an exaflop performance in the future, as we will demonstrate at some point on the top 500 list. And I think most importantly, enabling advances in science and research. And so, the system's in on the floor right now. We're looking forward to sharing a lot more in the days and weeks ahead.
Yeah, Jack Tangara. So there was, we have a press conference here that includes Jack and others from the top 500, and got some questions about that and about what he saw as where things stood with exascale systems. And he mentioned that he's seen Frontier on the floor at Oak Ridge. I work closely, as part of the Coral 2 project, which is how we've met with them. And it's just a unfortunate gap in timing. I think you guys got to be about that close from what I hear talking to the folks at Oak Ridge.
Yeah, and what's incredible, and I want to talk about Oak Ridge and Frontier, but we've also got Perlmutter now in the top 5, I believe, and a system in Archer in the UK. We've got Lumi, right? We've got a number of systems that the team's been able to deploy. At Perlmutter at NERSC, obviously. What's been incredible is not only with a pandemic, but an incredible, unique and unprecedented supply chain environment. seeing the teams come together, and again, this is back to that collaboration point. What my team at HPE has been able to do has been phenomenal, but they couldn't do it without the support of our customers and our partners to make this happen. And we are so close at Frontier, but I think if anybody had said 2 or 3 years ago, you're going to have a global pandemic, you're going to have a global supply chain disruption, and you're going to be right there, at the end of 21 at SC21, right on the cusp. I think I don't know if anyone would have taken that bet, and I think it's really a testament to what we can do together.
I think that's great. I also know you've got a system that you're in the middle of siting at Pawsey in Perth in Australia. I've been involved in that. I was on a meeting with you as part of that, and that you mentioned something that's interesting. I know. I think everyone is really kind of familiar with the supply chain, the impact on supply chain, and that you see it everywhere, not just in the computing industry. And my observation is that, to the extent I'm able to judge, that HPE has actually done an outstanding job of dealing with those difficulties. I don't know if you wanted to say anything or give a shout out to anybody in your organization about how you've overcome those issues. So.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Bronis. Obviously our manufacturing team has done just a fantastic job, manufacturing and supply chain. So Tim Fosvik and his team, who obviously run our factory in Chippewa Falls, Wisconsin, but also lead and manage our global supply chain for this team, have done just a great job. It's, Tim's at the top. There's lots of people working hard. But, again, beyond that, it's been more than just that. It's been, our hardware team, Gerald Klein, and the hardware engineering team certifying different parts. I think this is where some of the strength and the breadth of HPE has been really, really impactful. But again, it's more than that, and you know this because you've cited these systems and brought them into production. It's been the collaboration with our customers and at times having to stage and sequence things differently, or maybe make a decision to do something, on the system floor, right? Once installed versus doing it in the factory, and making these changes dynamically. And on top of that, honestly, all of my engineers, my software team, because not only are we bringing all this together, we're bringing exascale. I didn't touch on it when I talked about Frontier, but the Slingshot fabric, right, enabling, which is really enabling this accelerated performance. In some of our systems, like Perlmutter, we have, the new Cray systems management, the Kubernetes orchestration, which I think you're going to take advantage of as well here coming up, I hope. But some of it. But it's that it's really that collaboration and engagement, and that community mindset around how do we solve problems, how do we get these accomplished, that I think has been just so phenomenal for our entire team, and of course with our customers.
So one thing that's kind of amusing and challenging about our community and our industry is that here you are delivering cutting edge technology, and at the same time we can't help but ask you, what's next?
That's right. Well, and I think that I touched on it a little bit, but exascale is the beginning for us, right? And we have some great, there's some great longtime partners on the accelerator and CPU space. I mean, great industry leaders in AMD and Intel and NVIDIA that have been really, really good partners for us in delivering these systems. And there's more, you see them around the show floor here, more upstarts, which is, by the way, one of the reasons I love coming to a show like this, because I get to learn so much, right? Just talking to some of the companies, it's invaluable. It's not something I've been able to replicate online. Yeah,
we have a lot of innovative companies here this year. A lot of them are working in I'll call it AI accelerators.
Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, many of them are they offer their own boxes, but as far as like integrating them into a large system, I don't know if they're silly enough to think that they're going to just do that on their own, and so it's probably an opportunity for you to meet with some of them and see what they would be thinking about in terms of being involved in a larger system.
Yeah, and absolutely. And this, I think this trend of heterogeneity, right? Not just looking at one big monolithic system, but how do we optimize, certain code bases on some of these different systems? How do we integrate that into a scalable, high-performant fabric such that the data is in one place, but we can move the data to the right compute for the given workload or the given need, and obviously the integration, right? Just traditional, we've
integration is a lot harder than some people give it credit for.
Absolutely, and as we go to, from traditional simulation and modeling to integrating, training in those models, inference in those models, that creates a whole nother layer of complexity and integrity and scale. And I think that's where we'll continue to push the boundaries. And of course, we're doing this a little bit today with some customers, but the ability, one of the reasons we invested in the cloud architecture is to be able to also orchestrate across systems and ultimately into the public cloud, because we also recognize that there are certain workloads and certain elements that may make more sense to connect into a public cloud environment and take advantage of those resources. So this flexibility, and scalability, I think, of the system is really going to be the near-term future. And beyond that, we're just continuing to work with our partners to drive that innovation forward, and and see how we can mature some of these these new ideas that are coming out. As you mentioned, with some of these silicon innovators and platform innovators.
So you reminded me of something that I didn't put down in my notes, so hope you don't mind.
Of course.
But you mentioned that the kind of the idea of the heterogeneity in the system architecture, and I've been, you may not know, I've been talking a lot about that, but I'm sure you do remember that I've actually said I haven't mentioned El Capitan, and I'll just throw out there the name, but one of the things that I've been talking about that we're getting in that are these Rabbit modules, which I see as data analysis nodes. So I don't know if you want to take a chance and step out and talk about those on the fly.
It's interesting. I think there's some there's some really interesting potential use cases. It's funny. I haven't even told you this. I was talking to our CTO Mike Whitaker about it. We were together looking at a system, and we were talking about there's some interesting elements of being able to pause and take a snapshot. You think about you think about some of the benefits of kind of that on in node storage or close to node storage, but you also can do some really neat things where you may be able to orchestrate a system differently because you're no longer constrained by resources of a job having to complete. And I think much like many things, much like other things that we've innovated around, and even I think when Slingshot started, it was the most efficient way. The idea was the most efficient way using Ethernet to get scale. Now we're thinking about it at a layer 3 level. How do we open it up so that we can get high performance across a distributed network? That that same kind of thing with Rabbit is, if we put it in and we get customers thinking about how to use it, how can they use their systems differently? And that's the power of innovation. And back to your point, it's more than, as you know, Bronis, we've open sourced almost everything. We bought Determined AI in the AI space because they were open source. It was one of the attributes. But I think it's more than just open source. It's this community and collaborative development where we learn from each other, we try different things, and maybe they don't all work or they don't all turn out the way we expect them to, but I think Rabbit is one that could be really interesting as we look ahead.
And pretty much the Rabbit software stack is open source. We're working closely with you on developing it just to make sure people know what it is. It's basically a PCIe network that connects a bunch of flash storage or NVMe and an EPIC processor to the compute nodes that we'll have to a subset of the compute nodes that we'll have in El Capitan. So it gives us a very fast path to treat to node local storage or near node local storage, because we can mount it from a compute node and then actually share it across compute nodes. So it's a very interesting technology.
Yeah, and it also really, to put a plug in for my own product, it's also why we're so excited about the EX, the Cray EX and Cray Shasta platform, because it's this ability to customize it, right? Not only multiple blades of technology going into it for multiple generations across CPU and GPU and some of the combinations that we'll see, but this ability to add something like that. I mean, customers that have the architecture now can make a decision to add that in the future.
The racks do provide a lot of flexibility. I have to agree with that. Great. All right, I think that's basically ends things up here. Thanks. It's been great to have you on, and I hope you enjoy the rest of SC21.
Thanks, Bronis. I'm looking forward to enjoying the next couple of days, and it's great to meet you in person, as we said at the beginning. Look forward to working together.
It was a pleasure to meet you as well.
Take care.